Now, back to the Prime Minister. 11 days he is going to be away from Australia. He's in New York, where, of course, they have already recognised Palestine. There'll be a formal vote on that by the time you wake up tomorrow. Then he will give a completely meaningless speech to the UN General Assembly, of which, you know, it'll be about a quarter full. Why? Because A from Australia is a lot different than U from the United States of America, and they do it in alphabetical order. This is an event that the Prime Minister did not attend last year, or in fact the year before that, because you see there was domestic responsibilities, but of course that was all because Airbus Albo was catching on. Well, Airbus Albo's back up in the air, and he is spending the best part of 2 weeks away from the country after spending, what, almost 2 weeks away? Oh, but he pops up in Cairns for a press conference while they're refuelling the jet. Oh, that means he's right across things. This is a bloke who, remember, when illegal boats bump into the country, he says, oh, sorry, I've been in the car. This is a bloke who until recently said, when I'm overseas, I'm not going to talk about anything domestic. Well, there are big issues here to deal with in Australia, like, say, 3.4 million households that'll run out of food by Thursday. But boring, yesterday's news, cost of living crisis is over. Well, one of the things that he's going to try to do is like a Football World Cup or the Olympics. He's trying to get Australia to convince the United Nations that we should be hosting a climate conference, the COP. Now, this is the one where countries stand up, give speeches, or leaders like Joe Biden fall asleep at. Most notably, the reason why they want to do it next year is because, just like the Kyoto Protocol of 2007, just like the Paris Agreement of 2015, they want the Adelaide Agreement of 2026 to be what starts to bind the world towards the targets of 2035. So it's a branding exercise. Despite the fact that this country is $1 trillion in debt, nah, bugger it, we'll just keep doing it. And of course, all of the Canberra Colombos, none of which have access to a magnifying glass to actually go and have a look where this money comes from, whether it comes from the budget or off budget because it's an investment, but all of it ends up being borrowed. Why? Because the government spends more than it takes in, and that is due to be the case for the next 40 years. Now, Adelaide is the location where the Prime Minister is going to try to convince people in the UN that this is what we have to have. Now, amazingly and ridiculously, we are involved in a bidding process. And just like a bidding process for a FIFA World Cup or to convince the IOC to give you a summer or winter Olympic Games, you need to go around the world and promise a little bit here and a little bit there for the countries to vote for you. But right now, Turkey is the other country that wants to host it. So we are in this ridiculous scenario where we are bidding against another nation to have a climate conference. Why not do what they did with the Olympic Games when the two countries that were trying to bid for it, and the only two countries at the time of serious bidding for it, was Paris in France or Los Angeles in the United States. The IOC just turned around and said, oh, I'll flip a coin. You take 2024, you take 2028. Nobody was really bidding for 2032, so that's how Brisbane ended up getting it under the Palaszczuk government. But we are in a bidding war for a freaking climate conference. A climate conference that will cost us money. Now, the upper end of things is a couple of $100 million. The midpoint seems to be at about $100 million. And wishful thinking is that it'll be below that. Here is the Prime Minister explaining that one of the reasons he has to be in New York in person, buggering off from Australia for another 2 weeks. But because he's freshly elected and most of the key media people go with him, no one's going to rock the Airbus Albo plane on this one. This is him saying about why we need to do it and are we spending money in the bidding process. Have a look.
You're meeting the Turkish leader Erdogan, trying to convince him to pull out of the process for holding the COP. Would we be offering Turkey any sort of financial incentive, do you think, to pull out?
There clearly will need to be some compromise on both sides in order to move forward. I don't want to preempt those discussions. If it is not agreed that one or other country withdraw, and our bid, of course, is a joint bid with the Pacific, then the default position is the conference goes to Bonn. So neither Turkey or Australia in the Pacific will host.
I took a pledge not to swear. But you can imagine every swear word that's in my head when I hear that stuff. I mean, it's just BS. No one in Australia, and certainly no one in normal Australia, is hands and knees praying that we're going to get a climate conference. And even those who want one, whether it's this year or next year, because they have a COP every year. No, this is about the vanity of the Adelaide Accord being what we talk about the world over. This is madness. It truly is. And we will talk about it in a moment or two's time with Matt Canavan and with James Morrow. Unbelievable. We are using taxpayers' money. What amount of money, and what do we offer to Turkey for them to get out of the way so we can host the climate conference? Fair dinkum.